My apologies. Senator the Honorable Wade Mark, President of the Senate, other members of Parliament, Mr. Brian Caesar, Clerk of the House, Ms. Chantal LaRoche, Clerk of the Senate Acting, representatives of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Mr. Clive Barker, Ms. Faith Oyenekan, representatives of Parlamericas, Ms. Eilish Elliott, Ms. Chrisette Benjamin, former Speaker of the National Assembly of Montserrat, Ms. Shirley Osborne, former Senator Dr. Paul Richards, Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, staff of the Office of the Parliament, all discussion leaders, even in absentia, our listening and viewing audience, ladies and gentlemen, and my apologies, the Honorable Jagdeo Singh, Speaker of the House of Representatives. Good morning, everyone. Once again, by way of introduction, my name is Johnson Greenidge, Assistant Clerk Senate, and I want to welcome you all to the post-election seminar of the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, held in collaboration with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and Parlamericas. And we've arrived. Yeah? We've made it. After the long sittings last night, we are all here. Yes? Temperature check. Everyone is ready? Ready to absorb some knowledge this morning? Great. Wonderful. We don't know. Well, let's jump right into it. And please allow me to invite Mr. Brian Caesar, Clerk of the House, to share with us some opening remarks. Mr. Caesar.
Thank you very much, Johnson. And may I say that I stand on the protocols already established. So thank you very much for that. Honourable members, I welcome you to this post-election seminar 2025. And I extend sincere appreciation for your presence here this morning, particularly having regard to the time that we concluded the business of the Houses last evening and this morning, might I say. The term of this 13th Parliament has begun, and to assist you in your preparation for this parliamentary journey, we have collaborated with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and Parlamericas, two international parliamentary organizations, to host this seminar. The seminar will focus your attention on key areas of interest so that we can help you, as members of Parliament, to navigate this parliamentary journey that we have, in fact, been taking you through. There will be 9 sessions designed to encourage stimulation, discussions, reflections, and learnings. And these sessions are opportunities and challenges to being newly elected parliamentarians, behavior, ethics, and standards, powers, privileges, and procedure, the legislative process, questions and motions, inclusivity and participation, member-clerk relations, parliamentary diplomacy, networking, and parliamentary assistance, and debates. I therefore encourage your active participation through questions, suggestions, and sharing of experiences. Your engagement will enrich the dialogue and foster a deep understanding of your parliamentary responsibilities. Before I take my seat, allow me to express our thanks or gratitude to our discussion leaders. And similarly, I would want to express our thanks and gratitude to our partners in this exercise, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and Parlamericas, for their support in making this seminar possible. But I would also like to thank our presiding officers, President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, both of whom have been exceedingly supportive every step of the way. And to both of you gentlemen, I say a special thank you. And finally, I would like to thank you, our members. As I started, I know that it would have been a tough day yesterday for all of us, but certainly we are all here looking very bright-eyed. And therefore, I anticipate that in order to ensure that you don't fall asleep, you will be throwing at us as many questions as possible so that we can all remain engaged. So I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caesar. Allow me to now invite, for some other remarks, Mr. Clive Barker of the CPA HQ, right? To, yes, once again regale us with some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenwich. Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honourable Jagdeo Singh MP. President of the Senate, the Honourable Wade Mark. Government Ministers, members of the House of Representatives and Senate of the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, parliamentary officials and distinguished guests. As a Programmes Manager at the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, it is my honour to deliver these remarks on behalf of our Secretary-General, Stephen Twigg. The Commonwealth Parliamentary Association was established over 110 years ago. Then, as now, it brings together parliamentarians to have mutual learning, networking, and to enable them to overcome national and global challenges. A core premises of our organisation is the principle that only a fellow Member of Parliament knows and understands what it's like to be a parliamentarian. As such, we have brought together a host of different speakers, members from across the Commonwealth to share their experiences and best practices with you all. Equally important are the clerks and officials that will be joining us to make sure that we stick firmly to the procedural rule book. This short programme, we hope, will provide a basis for ongoing learning and development for the Parliament. Such important roles cannot be mastered in just a few days, so we hope that this will just be the start point for you all. We can and will continue to be by your side throughout your terms as members and senators. To those of you that are more experienced in the role, please do use this as a useful refresher and an opportunity to revise your understanding of the most up-to-date approaches and practices. Some key points that we would like to highlight to you all ahead of the programme is that the government of today could easily become the opposition of tomorrow. So government members should understand what they can do to ensure that Parliament is functioning at its best. Regardless of whether you are a minister, a senator, or a backbench opposition member, you must remember that you are a parliamentarian first and foremost. Remember at all times it is of who you work for, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Be goal-oriented, and that the people who work in Parliament are worth their weight in gold. So please do cherish them and value them as we encourage all of our members. So to conclude, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, as one of our 180 member parliaments, should always seek to fully utilise its membership as much as possible. We offer a variety of valuable and useful services, some of which are mentioned in the booklets on your tables. We have our Parliamentary Academy, an online portal with a host of different courses that are freely accessible to members and clerks of the Parliament. We have our 3 networks on women parliamentarians, small branches and parliamentarians with disabilities. And we have a host of different services that you can find out about on our website. So to conclude, we hope dearly that those of you who are both elected and appointed will get the most out of this programme, and we hope that it is a start point towards further engagement with you all for the betterment of the Commonwealth and its citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clive, for your calm and controlled remarks. Now, please allow me to invite the ever-bubbly Miss Eilish Elliott of Parlamericas to give us some more remarks. Eilish.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Please allow me to stand on the protocol that's already been established so expertly before me, but to also acknowledge and greet Senator Anthony Vieira, who is the Vice President for the Caribbean of our Parliamentary Network on Climate Change and Sustainability at Parlamericas. It is an absolute privilege to be here with all of you and to extend brief remarks today on behalf of Parlamericas as we open this post-election seminar in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, which we are really pleased to be supporting CPA and the Parliament in delivering. The next 2 days will offer meaningful opportunities for reflection, practical knowledge sharing, and the exchange of good practices with your colleagues and with resource persons from Trinidad and Tobago and other jurisdictions on topics ranging from parliamentary procedure and operations to inclusion and accessibility in Parliament and effective legislative processes, all seeking to support you as you prepare to best serve the population of Trinidad and Tobago through your parliamentary responsibilities as the collective membership of the 13th Legislature. Supporting parliaments and parliamentarians in fulfilling their democratic functions in service of all people throughout the Americas and the Caribbean is at the core of the mission of Parlamericas. As the interparliamentary institution of the Inter-American system, we work with the 35 national legislatures of the Americas and Caribbean to foster cooperative political dialogue, facilitate the exchange of good legislative practices, and promote parliamentary diplomacy in order to strengthen democracy and good governance across the hemisphere, and to support our parliaments in effectively and inclusively responding to the pressing issues of the day. The activities we undertake and the themes we work on at the national, regional, and hemispheric levels are guided by and responsive to the priorities of our member parliaments. As we will elaborate on throughout the meeting, and particularly tomorrow in the parliamentary diplomacy session, Parlamericas exists as a resource to its members, to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and to all of you individually as parliamentarians on an ongoing basis. The Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago has been a long-standing active member of Parlamericas, contributing invaluably to the governance of our organization and to our programming on climate change and sustainability, youth participation in Parliament, gender equality, and other regional issues. This has led to productive partnerships on initiatives like the First Young Women in Leadership program in the Caribbean in 2020, national level sessions on circular economy and other themes, and regional workshops on climate change, citizen participation, and our most recent jointly hosted Caribbean workshop on gender responsive parliamentary work in December 2024. It is always a pleasure to collaborate with your institution and to facilitate these spaces for joint learning, and I know that the next 2 days will be no exception. So on behalf of Parlamericas, I thank the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago for convening this important initiative and express our gratitude for your openness to partnering with us on this program. It has been wonderful, as always, to work with your organizations and teams to bring this session to fruition. And I also thank the discussion persons, the discussion leaders and resource persons who are joining here and virtually from Trinidad and Tobago and abroad for being here to share your knowledge and experience. So finally, I thank everyone in attendance for your dedication and service to your population. I hope you find the next 2 days informative and inspiring. We look forward to both supporting these discussions and to staying in touch and serving as a resource to you all throughout this new parliamentary term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eilish. Bubbly as expected. And now we've settled in a bit. Allow me the honor to introduce one of our presiding officers, the Honorable Jagdeo Singh MP, Speaker of the House, to close our opening ceremony. Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Whilst I am content to rely on the protocols previously established, I think it would be somehow remiss of me if I did not single out Senator the Honorable Wade Mark, President of the Senate, for special mention, as the Honorable President will tell you. I've known the Honorable President since virtually I was a very young man, so all protocols recognized, and otherwise, very special welcome and hello to the Honorable President of the Senate, and to all our distinguished guests who have graced us with their presence and given so generously of their time and efforts. We say thank you in advance. I wish to say from the outset that it is both an honor and what I consider a profound responsibility to be given the small task to address this distinguished and eminently qualified gathering of parliamentarians who are all freshly entrusted with a mandate from the citizenry of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Democracy is not an easily achievable goal, as we all know. It is not a one-off solution, and it is not a simple quick fix that matures in one single, perhaps what we may call explosive process. But it is an ever-evolving social, constitutional, legal, and I dare say multifaceted process. So that when in preparing for these remarks, I had recourse to the UNDP report, which outlined in the period of 1 year, 2024 to 2025, it would have marked the largest election cycle in human history. In this period, elections, this 1 year period, perhaps 2 years if we take it from beginning to the end of both years, elections would have been held across 72 nations, home to half of the world's populations. Roughly 3.7 billion citizens have had or will have the opportunity to cast their votes. And the casting of votes, when considered in the long history of mankind, is a relatively recent phenomena. So think about it carefully. The casting of votes perhaps would have existed just a few hundred years at most. I think we all in this room would remember the cries of the beginning of it all in the French Revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. But when you think about what casting a vote means in the history of humankind, and you think how relatively recent it is, the fact that in the period of 2024 to 2025, half the world's population would be casting their votes is in and of itself a momentous and indeed remarkable achievement. However, and for many, this would have represented their first encounter with what we consider to be the democratic process. But whilst the report was somewhat enthusiastic about this, it also delivered a sobering truth. And that sobering truth is that even within the confined spaces of what we call democratic states, these countries and these democracies are still fractured by inequality and the eroding public trust. I don't think you will find much resistance to the proposition that almost half of people who reside within the democratic ecosystem as we know it feel powerless. 2/3 believe that their voices are ignored. This crisis of confidence stems not only from unmet expectations, but also recently the toxic interplay of disinformation, polarization, and the shrinking human interaction, civil spaces that technology, one of the side effects of over-reliance on technology brings. The question then arises, what does this mean for us as legislators? To many, the answer might seem plain. However, as I've said before, democracy cannot and does not end at the ballot box. In order to keep democracies alive, It requires governance which is inclusive. It requires working assiduously to ensure that your system grants entrance to in such a manner where almost every voice is heard, every right protected, and every need addressed in some form or avenues for addressing needs. And that essentially is why a gathering of this nature matters so much. We are all too familiar with the concept of how democracies die. Do not fool ourselves that democracy, once established, is an ongoing, ever-living, ever-evolving process. Sometimes, as I've said before, within the ecosystem of any peculiar democracy, there is reverse engineering, and the reverse engineering resulting in a dying democracy takes place very, very, very slowly. So we must all, as legislators, be alive to that possibility. Over the next 2 days, we as a group together will forge a framework, hopefully, to translate our parliamentary mandate into meaningful action. Because ultimately, the harshest judge and jury that you will ever meet, and this, my 36 years of litigation, and Senator Allaha will tell you, it is the harshest jury you will ever meet is an electorate. There's no jury that you could stand in any court which you can address, which will be harsher than that of the electorate collectively as a jury. Sometimes that electorate is an unforgiving jury, and we must accept that. Their trust is not a given. It is earned through vigilance, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to attend to the business of the people. As I cast my mind's gaze on what a new mandate means, whether government or opposition, there's a role to be actively played, and we are all called upon to adopt a socially functionalist mindset. In that regard, all of us as parliamentarians must never lose focus and never lose sight and remembrance of two Latin maxims which would be useful to recall at this stage. One, vox populi, vox Dei, the voice of the people is the voice of God. But I think equally applicable is the second Latin maxim that is whispered to every pope on his coronation by perhaps the lowest ranking priest in the Vatican: sic transit gloria mundi. The glories of the world are only transient. So the trust which the people have given to us can be lost at a moment's notice. And I don't want to say it's an admonition, but my urge to remember the glories of the world as a parliamentarian is only transient. At this post-election seminar, we are gathered to engage in a comprehensive exploration of the multifaceted role of Parliament and the parliamentarian in a thriving democracy, and we will be concentrating on some key focus areas. Our journey commences with an examination of the foundational role of Parliament and newly elected legislators. This examination will also extend into Parliament's critical function, its role in representing the diverse voices of our constituents, its solemn responsibility in lawmaking, and its indispensable oversight function, ensuring accountability from the executive and the part we ought to serve in ensuring how parliamentary accountability works hand in glove with the overarching principle of all constitutional democracies, the centerpiece of which is the rule of law, and how parliamentary accountability facilitates the rule of law. Perhaps the best part, and possibly the clerks present may agree, that the more premium sessions, and I say this loosely, are those aligned with comprehending the committee system of Parliament. Because even though you may have that broad and overarching opportunity to present your arguments, for want of a better term, in the various houses in which you serve, it is the committees which afford you the more granular approach to parliamentary accountability. Committees are often described as the engine room of Parliament, as they play an indispensable role in detailed scrutiny. It is imperative for legislators to understand their distinct mandates and operational methodologies, especially as it relates to the power and limits of committees, clarifying their authority to summon witnesses, demand information, and conduct in-depth investigations. Holding ministries accountable and enforcing recommendations are also critical to the work of committees. In highlighting how the minister, the MP, the senator, and the parliamentary secretary contributes to the legislative process, what is needed indeed is an intricate balance which strikes that delicate but firm balance between party loyalty, personal conscience, and the pressing interests of constituents. This, oftentimes, ladies and gentlemen, is where the true test of statesmanship lies. And it is a rocky, I dare say sometimes, conceptually, ethically, morally, road and challenging road that we all as parliamentarians will someday have to confront. Learnings on the mechanics of how to effectively table questions, motions, and amendments, understanding the strategic importance of each and other matters of similar importance, such as private members' bills and other mechanisms for individual MPs to champion legislative changes, are elements that will assist in honing, sharpening, and shaping your progress and prowess as a legislator. On the subject of the productive life of the legislature, the acronym ESA comes to mind. This stands for Ethics, Standards, and Accountability. Parliamentary accountability is the cornerstone of public trust. And I am certain that the topic of a structured, well-defined, and extensive code of conduct for members of Parliament may arise. The lawyers amongst us will know that the canons of judicial conduct are well set out in the Bangalore Principles. Perhaps it may be time for us to set out our own as legislators principles, which bear some resemblance to those of the principles enunciated in Bangalore for judicial conduct. Other factors, such as the declaration of interest, will be emphasized, along with strategies for preventing conflicts of interest that could present what the lawyers amongst us will know to be the perception of the well-informed and fair-minded observer as to whether the bias or whatever applies to a parliamentarian. At the heart of my opening address is the notion of seeking the interests of our people. In this regard, inclusive representation is not just a moral obligation. It is a democratic imperative. A parliament that reflects the full spectrum of society, such as women, youth, ethnic minorities, and marginalized groups, is better equipped to legislate with legitimacy, empathy, and foresight. I am well aware that improvement is always a work in progress, but greater progress has begun in this very room. This two-day seminar cannot simply be theoretical. It calls for a mandate of practical application and service. This is also an opportunity to foster a community of practice, encouraging peer learning and strengthening the bonds that unite us as members of the Commonwealth parliamentary family. I am confident by the end of these sessions, every one of us will feel more empowered, more informed, and more resolute in our commitment to serving our constituents and upholding the principles, the core principles and notions of parliamentary democracy. I wish all of you all a productive and insightful seminar. And taking up on what Mr. Caesar has said, I will crave your indulgence and your forgiveness if I may have to slip out at some point in time this morning. I think we all know what a very early morning all of us had in the House of Representatives. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I must say your remarks were very pertinent, very apropos. And it leads us into what I think will be a very productive session for members. Must say that we as the staff at the Office of the Parliament are very happy to see how many senators made it out this morning after last night's proceedings, or I should say earlier this morning's proceedings, right? So we'll end our opening session now. Please allow me to end our streaming of the opening session. Say thank you to our viewing audience, and then head into some of the bacchanal today. Yeah? Right? So thank you very much, and someone could signal to me when we've ended the stream.